Unless we're making the argument of let's have three-quarters of the people in the world living in abject poverty, I do not see any legitimate rationale behind trying to limit China's growth or trying to oust China from the global supply chain. I think it's just completely against our moral standing. Not to say it's not in the spirit of collaboration since we built post-war, but this stems from a misunderstanding, I think, on both sides, China with the U.S. and U.S. vice versa. And for one thing, the U.S., where at least a common perception is China's trying to displace the U.S. I don't think that at all. That it's aspiration. In fact, its aspiration is to become a technical and industrial power, more like after the German model, a bigger Germany, and with its managed capitalism rather than free market capitalism. And at the same time, China also misperceives U.S. intention. I don't think everyone in the U.S. has the intention that we need to stop China's growth, but in fact, delineate and carve out these areas of contention, hopefully try to sort them out, respect each other's national security considerations, rather than let it corrode the entire economic landscape. If we're not careful, that's what's going to happen. But also, I think a lot of this kind of communication is a bit more emotional than rational, rather than cold-headed. Lots of these policies might actually not achieve its objective. For instance, can you really stop China's technological growth, right? Can China really surpass the U.S. in many of the key critical technologies? I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. But it's important to keep open the dialogue channels, to keep on talking. That's the first thing. And second is to see each other's perspective and understand each other. For instance, people think about China as having a centralized state model and that it's crowding out the private sector. That's not at all the case. Just look at the data. 30 years ago, 70% of the wealth belonged to the state. Today, 70% of the wealth belongs to the private sector, which also provides 80% of the jobs, 70% of the industrial output. It is firmly in the driver's seat. So that centralized approach is more political centralization and setting the strategic objective, but there's a huge amount of autonomy left to the local level, left to the entrepreneurs, left to the local mayors, and they have an interactive, dynamic relationship. All of that is actually happening on the ground, and sometimes we get lost in these very grandiose messages on either side, but I don't think that depicts the reality.